Hello everyone, welcome back to our YouTube channel. I hope you are enjoying the videos. For more insight on HR practices and real corporate world exposure, please subscribe to our channel, like the video and do share it with others. Also, please press the bell icon to never miss an update from HR Success Talk. Thanks a lot. Enjoy this video.
A very good evening to all of you. Today I'm going to talk about HR audit and process. Let's move ahead. Now when it comes to the HR audit, what do you mean by audit? It is a process to perform and examine the various tasks in an organization. That could be policies, procedures and documentations as well as the various HRIS systems. Now when it comes to the HR audit as a topic, five fundamental things are very important from a compliance standpoint. First and foremost is very important. You should have an updated employee handbook and policies up to the mark and up to date. The second important thing is that equal employment opportunity laws. Now, when it comes to the laws, there are various changes which keeps on happening in the employment laws. So you need to regulate along with that. The third aspect is affirmative action plan. Now, when it comes to an organization, there are various employees who are on a contractual basis or subcontractor basis. We should abide with the affirmative action program that is as per the compliance. Now, the fourth aspect, which is very important, that is a personal file and required documentation. In today's scenario, most of the companies having an HRIS system. But in older times, there were no HRIS system in place. So the personal documentation file of employee record file will be kept as a hard copy of the file. So we need to ensure that all the documentation during the joining formalities are up to mark and well documented in those files. Now the fifth part from a compliance standpoint is American Disabilities Act. What it talk about, we have a lot of HR processes like recruitment, selection, promotion, etc. Now there are a lot of disabilities available in a person, has a physical or mental disability and a record such as an inpatient and all that impairment. It regard to the having much an impairment. Now moving ahead, as I told you about the HR audit, in entire HR audit process, 5 steps are very important. That study and understand the local laws, always double check, right, the laws when the clauses in the laws are particular and up to the mark and it is aligned with our business. The third aspect, expect the process to the manual. I mean, whatever the laws that we have been changes and upgraded, it has to be abide with the our employee handbook, and escalate the issues immediately in a real-time solutions. For example, let's look at any absconding case which has come in the organization and the person is not into the service for last 8 days. Then as an HR person, you need to follow the absconding process and be a value add where you can. So let's give an example of the absconding process, such as how do you ensure the value addition, right? When you do the absconding process, you need to ensure that everything it has to be documented over the email along with the facts, right? Moving ahead, let's talk about the few HR best practices that the companies are following, right, when it comes to the HR audit. First and foremost is a checklist, HR audit checklist. It will be a function wise audit checklist. Let's say, for example, in HR, the main function is the recruitment, then the performance management system, then the employee engagement, etc. The function-wide checklist will also help the organization to have a quarterly review feedback mechanism process. Most important to have a data accuracy. See, everything is around the data, right? If your data is talks about the very factful information, then only the accuracy of the various HR analytics reports will come into the picture, and that's how you need to upgrade in the HRI system. Here I would like to quote one example. Let's say, as an HR professional, you need to ensure that your system upgrade then and then itself. For example, one person movement which has happened from in India from Pune to Gurgaon. So as an HR person, you need to ensure that when you issue the letter, transfer letter to that individual, you need to mention and update the record in your HRI system. That's how it will give you the data accuracy. Now, the first important thing is a quarterly internal audit. There has to be a different audit systems that we need to practice when it comes to before the annual audit process. Now, the best practices will include the providing the security services, hiring the right people, right talent in the organization, have a fair performance-based assessment system, and training on the relevant different skills that is required in the organization for the talent to upbring and upskill themselves. Moving ahead, we need to understand what is the scope of HR audit and what are the different types of the audits that generally follow in the organization. Now, when it comes to the scope, it follows the entire life cycle of an employee, right? Starting from onboarding to the exit process. Now, it includes the HR, supervision, leadership style, how it is delegation and motivation and communication patterns that you make in the organization. Typically, HR audit is should be done by the one of the internal expert in the HR team. Otherwise, you can call up the external body as well based on the organization requirement, right? They may use the audit spreadsheet to have an HR audit checklist. Now, generally, there are three different ways or types of audits that happens in the organization. One is from the compliance standpoint, second is an operational standpoint, and third one is in strategic. Now, when it comes to the strategic, right? So let's take an example of an hiring talent or talent acquisition process or talent development process, right? So in the future, what is the talent requirement of your organization? You should do the proper planning and execution in terms of the before the actual audit comes into the picture. Now, moving ahead, let's understand the strategic function, strategic and function specific, how the audit is taken place and what are the precautions you as an HR need to take care of it. The first place to start with the HR matrix in the organization success, right? So I have listed down few of the HR main core functions like recruitment, performance management, succession planning, workflows planning, employee engagement, employee communication, which is very important. Now let's take the current live scenario, right? Everybody during the pandemic, we are working from home, right? So how do you communicate with the employees? Through the calls, through emails, do the group calls along with the managers. How do you ensure and increase your employee experience? That's most important. And the last one is diversity and inclusion and equality. Now, in today's scenario, every organization working towards the diversity and inclusion, you must have heard about this terminology. What does it mean by, right? So to have a diverse workforce in the organization, it's not only the gender specific, it will be a disability specific, it will be a geography specific, right? You need to ensure that the ratio should match with the organization goals when it comes to the diversity and inclusion. A lot of companies are developing various mechanisms and practices to have a diversified and inclusive work environment. Like for example, in one of my organization where I used to work, we used to have called as Women Forum or Uprise program for the women workforce in the organization, right? Moving ahead, this is the fundamental and most important part of an HR audit, right? Unless and until you prepare your questionnaire, you will not able to understand how do I perform my audits. Now, this questionnaire will vary from the function to function, right? It's not specific to the organization. So here I would like to emphasize on the organization specific, right? When somebody get onboarded to the organization, right? We typically as an HR, we give them the handbook, we give them the new joiner hand kit or something like that, right? It has a mission statement and vision statement of the organization. So is there a mission statement and vision statement in your documentation part at the part of onboarding process, right? How many managers and supervisors in the company have? What is the ratio of male and female in the organization? How long the employment in the temporary, follow in temporary, contractual and non-contractual positions, right? How many shifts that the company works for the employees, right? And how the HR communications management. Likewise, I just quoted an organization level checklist. In the similar way, you can define your checklist of HR function specific, be it with the performance management system, be it with the learning and development systems, right? So it's very important to have a questionnaire. Now, to have a questionnaire, once we have a questionnaire, what is important to have a data collection and benchmarking. These days, various companies are talking about the benchmarking. See, benchmarking in HR HR, we correlate with the only component. It's not about that. Benchmarking, it comes from the how HR processes are strong along with your competitor, that you need to define as an organization. Now, when it comes to the data collection, right, you collect the data and related areas and compliance issues according to your HR processes. Now, the data collection will be happening on a specific review process, right? For example, in appraiser, performance appraiser, how the final rating get judged. It happens once in a year, right? In many companies, it happens twice in a year. So you should have a well documented data and collected in a specific manner. You can analyze the different parameters based on high value to the organization, whether it is implementing low value to the organization, whether some particular initiative is difficult to implement in the organization, but it's very important to the organization, right? So data collection and benchmarking plays a very vital role. Now, next, moving ahead, provide a feedback and results. See, feedback is nothing but whether the things are going in the right direction, or do we need an as an improvement in one of the areas. The audit team summarize the data and provide the feedback to the organization at the senior management level. Findings are typically in a written format, right, in a written report format, that should be discussed with the employees of that department. Suppose we are taking an example here as an HR audit, it has to be well versed with the discussed with the HR team, and HR team should agree, and it has to be discussed with the HR management, HR team with the management as well. Now, the next most important step, you need to create an action plan. Let's say, for example, one of the finding which has got from the HR audit is that background verification checks not done on time. And how do you create an action plan? What is the action plan that you will ensure that you will have a background verification check on time? Let's say you have a deadline or SLA matrix of 15 days from the date of joining of a particular employee, then you need to ensure as an HR person the background verification checks should complete before 15 days of completion of the post joining of that particular individual. Hence, the report is prepared by the audit team is required. In-depth findings are mentioned. Let's say, since we are talking about the background verification, you have a different types of check: qualification check, professional check, employment check, then address proof check, and everything, right? Not all companies follow all the types of checks. Let me give me an example. I was working with the cards and payments industry, and there we used to have the employees from the different cards and payments background. There was a mandate from the client is that you should have a drug test, right? So we have implemented only with one of the customer. It's not across the organization. Then the one of the finding which has come, it has to be across the organization. So we started preparing our objective in that line. Now, moving ahead, the last and most important function of an HR audit is to have an atmosphere of continuous improvement. So we hear this terminology in various ways, right? It continuous improvement. Any process, as an HR leader, you need to ensure that there is a continuous improvement in that process. What does it mean by, right? So for example, you have a certain onboarding process, and suddenly the pandemic situation has come, and you need to do the onboarding process which is virtually and with the hybrid model, right? Then you will not able to take all kind of documents signed by the new joiners physically, right? So you need to have a different mechanism process that you upgraded and done the continuous improvement to build and smooth the function of onboarding process. So as an HR audit, how do you ensure that it is a continuous improvement? I would like to emphasize few of the benefits of the continuous improvement as an HR audit process. At the overall HR audit, ensure that the compliance and very important in terms of the HR regulation. Now, you need to be latest with the stay with the latest employment laws, various trends which are happening in the market, as well as accuracy and clarity of the employees in the organization is very important. Classify them in a various manners, analyze and reduce the turnover cost or attrition percentage. For example, let's say your HR function is well defined, well procedure driven, then there are less less issues from the employee and the attrition percentage will go up. Also, it helps in address very important is harassment, right? You have a grievance redressal committee, you have a posh committee in the organization to ensure that any kind of harassment at the workplace is taken care and maintained and documented as per the legal compliance. So in nutshell, I would like to emphasize this to all my HR friends. We do our day-to-day HR work very due diligently, right? But we need to ensure that it has to be documented up to the mark, up to the level, and up to the standards, so that we have a continuous improvement programs in place in an organization. Wish you all the best. I hope you have got some knowledge about the HR audit as a concept. Wish you all the best. Thank you so much.